Well, hey, y'all. Today we are doing part two of this transformation on this Jacobean style buffet. We have filled in all of her grain. We have casted resin for her legs. We have repaired her legs. We've flattened out the warping in the doors. We've added wood you bend trim and molds, and we added resin casted molds as well. So I think we may have gotten her to a stage where we're just about to give her some paint. If you haven't checked out part one, go back and start that video now. So if you just popped onto this video without watching part one first, this piece was I submitted as part of the Ivy Lane Interiors Furniture Challenge. The theme was called Old World Opulence. So that is what I'm trying to give this piece, but with a little bit of a modern flair so it fits into my home. So the first thing we're going to do is add a primer. Since we had done so much grain filling, so much sanding, so much resin added, wood you bend added, so many other different types of materials, it's really just a good idea to have one solid color. Now, since this piece had been painted with chalk paint before, there really wasn't a great need to put a primer on it because I normally would have just painted right over the chalk paint, especially since there was no sealer or wax or anything on it. I normally would have just painted right over it with another chalk style paint. But like I said, since this had had so much sanding and filler and whatnot, I decided it would be best to give it a good priming. And I'm using a flocked foam roller, and it is a really good roller because with a foam roller you'll tend to get a lot of bubbles, which creates a lot of texture. With that flocking, it pops all those bubbles and it really helps your paint to lay out nice and smoothly. So we're just going to cover everything inside and out so that it has a nice, good, clean, solid base to start with. Now I'm not going to do inside the drawers, but I am going to do behind where the doors are, because when you open them, well, I like a little surprise in there, and it helps to also give you another little design feature. Inside of drawers and inside of doors, I love adding that little extra pop and a little something not expected. And you'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about. So I'm cutting in with a synthetic bristle brush and then coming back with that roller to roll over the edges while the paint is still wet. So then you just get a nice, even, flat surface. Because remember, even though this is primer and it doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot, you just need a nice flat surface so you have the other paint to go on top of. And I noticed this little section here on the sides just didn't look finished, and it had some chipping and whatnot. So I'm taking some more of that wood you bend and I'm just going to heat it up and then measure it out and then cut it, glue it, heat it again, and press it on just like we did on the apron portion of this piece. This stuff, I just love this stuff. I would put it everywhere if I could. It is like magic, and I love playing with it. Like the fact that you could just heat it up and it gets so flexible blows my mind. I also noticed after I put the primer on, there were a few more places that need to be filled in, so we just needed to sand those. And this is what I'm going to put on the inside as that little pop of just differentness, just, you know, a little something unexpected. I love the colors orange and pink together, and I know it's not completely orange on the outside, but it has orange tones. So I'm using the color Peony by Dixie Belle Paint, and it is a chalk mineral paint, and that's what we'll be using throughout this entire piece. I'm just brushing it on with my flat large brush. It holds a lot of paint. It moves the paint really nicely and just gives you a nice smooth finish. So this is the mural that is going to go behind the buffet, and I wanted to match the color in it. So I went to Dixie Belle's website and I clicked on Color Lab and then match a color. I brought up a picture of the mural so that we could match a color to it. This is an awesome feature because now it populated all the colors throughout the entire mural. And then you just go through and you pick the color that you want to use on your furniture or that you want to create. So I'm going with that deep apricot color, and what they're saying is to use 90% cottage door and 10% chocolate. You can then, add to the cart and have it shipped to you, of course, but I suggest you find your local retailer because they're going to help you even more. Or you can download this recipe as well, and this formulation is for 100 square feet. They're going to give you a few other colors that you could use as well, but I did not have enough of the cottage door, so I'm going to go over here to the color mixer tab and put in the colors that I do have. I have flamingo, and I have chocolate, and I have Florida orange. And the flamingo was a little too pink. It needed a little more orange added to it so that I could get more of that deep apricot color. So I'm just playing with the portions back and forth. You can do this in percentages or you can do it in parts. And I'll do a little more in depth on color mixing in another later video, but this gives you a really close color. Mind you, anything that you see on your screen may not be exactly what you get in person because all of our computer screens are formulated differently. When you take a digital image and then create something in person, you may not always get the same picture. So there are many different tabs here that you can see how much paint you need to use. Depending on the type of piece you're doing, it's going to give you an estimation. Again, you can download the recipe or order the products right there as well. So what I'm doing is I started with that flamingo and I'm slowly just adding chocolate and the Florida orange. I could have put this on a scale and done this properly. I'll put air quotes around that if you want to be more precise about it. But I wasn't quite getting the color with the exact proportion, so I kind of just kept adding as I went until I finally got the color that I really wanted. And then I'm painting it on this popsicle stick just to get an idea of the color. And well, what do you think? I think it matches that mural pretty nicely. Well, y'all, finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. She's going to get some color. I could sit here and nitpick every little dot and ding and fill and paint and fill and paint and fill and paint till I'm blue in the face. This had so much damage that filling it is just, it's next to impossible to get it all. So I'm calling it good for the moment because if this was a regular piece, I don't think I would have filled these holes. So I think we're good. I think we're gonna go with it. So it's part of its old world charm, right? So it is Thursday around, I think 4:30, 5 o'clock. And the final submitted pictures are due Saturday. Yeah, last minute, right? Oh yeah. We had family in town last week. That's part of the reason. The other part is this joker just needed so much work. And I had set out and said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. At least the piece will be done. and my office will look pretty. So if this doesn't happen, it's going to be okay. Excuse the background noise, my washer's going. But basically, what I'm doing, the basics of chalk paint. Now, the only thing different is I did fix that washer. It is a long tune. There we go. Nope. Okay, there it is. Basically, the basics of painting with chalk paint is you want to dampen this brush with water, and then you'll get nice, smooth brush. Not many brush strokes. There we go. Nice, smooth finish. As well as I like to come back and do nice long strokes. Kind of just feather everything out. Well, that's it. So this is that nice deep apricot color. It's scary because it's not something I normally have. I'm not usually a color I normally use, but I'm a cool toned girl, I guess. But it went with the mural that I have, and it's gonna look so pretty. I'm using the Dixie Belle flat brush, and this, the large flat brush, I think it's called. It holds a nice amount of paint, so I could do this nice long surface and not have to dunk in a whole lot. You also don't use a lot of paint. That's my, if that first coat doesn't look super, super pretty, it's okay. That means you're doing it right. I don't mean for you to talk to my back. I just can't get in there any other way. So, try to see. Lost my microphone. Told you I had company. When I have company, I'm cleaning, and every time I clean, I lose stuff. So there's that. So you see me pouncing every once in a while. That's those little holes, little divots that we're just filling in. I think I like it. So we're just going to continue applying the paint throughout the entire piece down into the legs. I had added some of that cobblestone color to the legs because you're going to see what we're going to do with that in just a second. But I'm using that flat large brush to cut in on the edges and then come back with my nice long strokes. So I could have used the roller, but for the technique that I'm going to be using, I just thought it would be better to just go ahead and brush the entire thing. I will tell you, I have not hand brushed a piece of furniture in quite a while, and the muscle memory was there, but it was crying the entire time. My arm was getting sore, and especially after, you'll see how I add wax and whatnot, it does a number on you. But anyhow, don't be afraid to use that brush and push it into all of those details. I'm using a circular motion over the details to just really get the paint in all of those nooks and crannies. And I always apply 2 coats because, well, we're human and we are going to miss something. There's going to be something on there that you didn't see the first pass through. And then what we're going to do is just start basing out these drawers. I do just the inside the lip because these drawers insert just a little bit, and you will see that if you don't paint it the same color. Now the bottom drawer was getting some repair. The dovetail sides were coming apart a little bit, so we had to do a little repair, and that's sitting to the side. But we're just going to start with that top drawer, and we're going to start the blending process. So I am adding the corally, deep apricot, whatever you want to call this color, to the entire piece. And then what we're going to do is add a combination of drop cloth and cotton is what I've mixed together to get a nice creamy white color that will blend into this apricot color. And I'm adding it right there on the insert, or in, I don't know, the center. I don't know what you call it. There's a little molding around it. So I want it to be there in the center, and then we're going to take a dry brush and just start blending that out. Now on your first coat, you don't have to be exact. You're just trying to really base a color in there. So I didn't add the cream color when I did the sides. Wasn't thinking I was going to do any of the blending on the sides, but I figured it just didn't, it looked too solid, so I went back and did it after that first coat. So the sides actually have technically three coats on them, but I think it just added a little more dimension that I was looking for. So it's the same process. We're blending two colors together. We're blending that coral color and we're blending the white. Now these are not typical colors that I would say to start your blending journey with. I would pick colors that were closer in tone. In other words, I would pick, say, a lighter apricot and then blend that in with the deeper apricot. Instead of because see how drastic of a color, so we have to work this much more to get those colors blended together. Then you're going to come back with that dry brush. I'm using an oval medium brush from Dixie Belle and spritzing it every now and then. You want to keep that paint wet, and you want to make sure that there are no distinct lines between the two colors. As you can see in that top left portion, how you see that distinct color, we just need to keep working it until you just don't see a distinct line between the colors anymore. And you have to work it a little more when there are more drastic color differences. And if you notice, I'm working my brush in every different angle. I'm going diagonal, I'm going horizontal, I'm going vertical. Sometimes I even use a little circular motion, just really trying to blend those colors together the best that I can. The other thing is keep a paper towel or a rag handy so that you can wipe off any of the excess paint that's going to build up in your brush. You want to keep that brush as dry as possible. The more paint that builds up in there, the muddier it's going to get on your piece. And now I'm just going back and I am taking that center section and I'm going to make it wider. So what that's going to do is kind of create a wash or a glaze over the entire thing so that those colors blend in. And it gives you that infinity edge of color. So I don't know if you can see right here how it's like there's shadowing. Like it's got good coverage, but the color that I mixed had a flamingo base. The color was flamingo. And that color is notoriously, it doesn't cover as well. So I'm going to show you a little tip to help you get really good solid coverage when you have a color that just it doesn't like to cover as nicely. So what I do is I take my brush and I go the opposite direction of the grain and just kind of lay some paint down. I'm not trying to get like everywhere. I'm just trying to get some color on there. Then I give it a good spritz with water. And go back with my nice long strokes. So I got this far last night and it just wasn't feeling right. And I said, you know what, I was overtired, wasn't thinking straight. So I went and I kept trying some different things. I even, on my sample board, I added some brown wax to see if that would do it. But it just wasn't. And there's a storm coming through right now. So I apologize for my distraction. But it just still wasn't doing it. I realized that this color in the center was just too white. It was creating this super pastel-y color rather than keeping with the warm tones. Like this is too cool of a tone. And I couldn't figure out why. And I realized that the off-white that I mixed up was drop cloth, which is drop cloth color, and cotton, which is the brightest white, and that combination just was too white. So I've added some of this tan color, this cobblestone color, to that mixture, and we're going to see if that works a little better, as well as I think I need to bring more of the orange back into the center a little more. My first thought was, when you see these pieces on, Bridgerton or whatnot, this whole center would have been one solid color. But I'm trying to blend it, and so that's why I was trying to bring it out so much further. But I'm finding it's too harsh with this to that. So we're going to rework it, and we're going to get it there. It's Friday now, and I still have all this staging stuff to get ready. I have flowers to put in a vase. I have the backdrop, you see back here, to paint, and the wallpaper to put on the panels, that the wallpaper mural that this whole thing, coordinates with. So, and I have to frame that all out. I don't know if I'm going to be done today. And cross your fingers, say a prayer that this storm that's coming through doesn't knock my power out, because then I'm going to be sitting here by candlelight sweating. So follow along. It's an adventure, isn't it? Well, good news was my power did not get knocked out, so we're getting to work. What I've done is I've taken a little bit of that chocolate and I've added that to the outside edges. So this is now becoming a 3-color blend, which when I blend 3 different colors, I start at the outside, blend those 2 colors, and then add the inside color, and then blend it out. So now we'll just come back and we'll add a little more of that deep apricot. That's just the color that I'm calling it. It is that custom mix that we mixed up a little earlier. And now we're going to continue to spritz. I use a continuous mister bottle. The other key thing is having a distinct color for each different, a distinct brush for each different color. And then you want a dry blending brush. So each of your paint brushes will be dampened with water so that you can, one, keep that paint wet and keep the paint moving. And then you use that dry brush to blend it all in together. I'm using the flat large brush for the apricot, and then I have a mini brush for the creamy color that I custom mixed. And I'm using here a natural bristle brush to actually blend in all of those colors together. I'm using more of a circular motion this time around, and I found that kind of worked those colors in together a little better. And then in combination with the natural bristle brush, this is super, super dense. It's actually a brush from Up Paint, and it just did the trick a little better. And my supervisor had to come and make his face be known and tell me what to do. Of course, as always. He tried to come in a couple of times as I was. Every time I start talking on here, he keeps coming in. I had to take a break for a second from doing the voiceover because he wants to come and knock everything off my desk and talk to me while I'm sitting here doing this voiceover. Yes, I've become the crazy old cat lady, but that's okay. He keeps me company during the day. And again, we're just keep blending those colors together and working them until it just feels right. You're going to step back, kind of look at it a little bit, and decide, do I want to add a little more, a little less, depending on where you're at. And then just a light brush all the way across the entire thing. And like I said, whew, my arm is burning by this point. Like, burning. And of course, keep that dry rag or paper towel or whatever to clean off those bristles. Because it is so dense, a lot of paint can get trapped up in there. Now we're going to head on into getting some color on those legs. So I told you I painted them cobblestone to begin with, which is another Dixie Belle color, and now I'm using No Pain Gel Stain in the color Golden Ash, and that is what is going to create a wood tone on these legs. So I'm applying it with just a cheap chip brush. And that's really what's going to help give it a little bit of a uneven or grain tone to it. And I'm brushing it on with a fairly light coat, and I'm just going to leave it. Normally when I apply this, I would then wipe it back with a shop towel or a t-shirt. But with this, I wanted to keep those brush strokes in there so that it had a grain look to it. You're just going to need to give this a little extra drying time before you would ever put sealer over it. And then I wanted to highlight those details on the doors and whatnot a little more, so I painted a solid color on the outside molding, and now I'm just dry brushing. Dry brushing is you take almost all the paint off your brush and just lightly feather over the details of these moldings. You're just hitting the high points. Now we're going to wax this entire piece. And again, this arm is, goodness, y'all. It was a workout. That is for sure. I was sweating by this point because it was getting quite late on Friday night. So what you're going to do is this is actually clear wax that I'm applying. I know it looks white, but it is clear. And I'm using a natural bristle brush that's a super dense brush. This is actually Dixie Belle's Blendy Blend brush, I think is what it's called. But I use it for a wax brush because it gives the most coverage of the wax and it gets the wax evenly distributed. Now there may be excess wax around certain areas, so you're going to wipe it back down with a shop towel to get any of the excess off. Then I will add my brown wax. If I had added the brown wax directly to that porous chalk painted surface, you don't get as much control over where it's going to go and where you don't want it to go. So I always apply a clear coat of clear wax underneath the darker waxes so that I have more control over where they go. I don't want the entire piece to look completely grungy and dirty, but I do want to add a little bit of texture and a little bit of depth and a little bit of that old world feel to the piece. And then you're just going to come back with that shop towel and remove any places that you have it too dark and you just want to even everything out so that there's no excess built up any particular places. You can also use a little bit of clear wax. If you get the brown wax in places that you don't want it, you can add a little bit of clear as an eraser. Now we'll just add some hardware. I picked these up from Amazon. I thought they would be perfect. And now I'm taking some Big Mama's Butter, which is an oil-based salve that we're going to apply to those rails and anywhere that it slides. And then I just kind of gave it a good soaking of this all over because this is so old and so dry that, and it also gave it a nice scent as well. I'm using the scent flannel, which is what one of my customers would have described as a really good smelling man. And then watch how much easier they go in and out now. Well, do you remember what she looked like before? Oh my goodness, did she have a lot of damage? What do you think? Is she opulent enough? I actually made the deadline. I submitted her on Saturday, the 29th by 5:18. The deadline was 12 p.m. that night. So I made it by the hair of my chinny chin chin. But you know what? I'm ecstatic that she's finished. And now I have a beautiful piece to store all of my office supplies. You can see all the submissions over at Ivy Lane Interiors on Instagram. I'll put a link below. There's that little pop of unexpectedness I was telling you about. I did add a few gold details with some rub and buff. And then, of course, the drawer liners that you didn't see on camera. If you had a piece that you think that you'd like to refurbish, let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're working on. And be sure to join us next week as I did not complete those panels I was talking about, so that's what we'll be working on.